Rans, I just pressed the let's go live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, we got to make sure the tubes are working. And it is always important to do that because sometimes we have audio problems or fed problems or, anything like that. But it looks like things are working. That is tremendous news. V's warning me. He says, hey, make a setting change there, dum-dum, which I'm happy to attend to. Wait. All right. I think we're good right now. All right. So, my friends, let's get started, shall we? I don't know what settings we're talking about. Let's go. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about Biden and Hunter's Crackhouse mania extravaganza. Wow, I don't know what's going on over there, but we've had all sorts of stories of topless people roaming around the Capitol or the White House grounds. We've now got cocaine in dime bags being spread all over the place. We already know these two were conducting international conspiracies to take bribery and quid pro quo schemes. And so now it just keeps going down the rabbit hole. We've got a lot to get into. And we've got different segments about this story because there's a lot. First of all, this story was confirmed. When we heard this a couple days ago, that there was something called cocaine hydrochloride, we thought, okay, well, there could be a reasonable explanation for this. It could be, a medical necessity, some sort of a chemical device that was there for some reason that spilled, and you had this, okay, whatever, what happened, who knows? But turns out, no, it's not really a medical application type of problem here. It's drugs, baby. It's a small dime bag. And somebody left that somewhere in the West Wing. And we don't know really where. We think it might be in the library in the West Wing. We'll poke around through that. And there's some interesting questions about Hunter and this little nose sniffle that he's got. He's got a little bit of an itch there. He's like, oh, man, very curious. Out at the White House party when they were doing July 4th events. We've also got some reaction from MSNBC. They say it was unfathomable that this could happen. And I agree. It's amazing. It must be one of the most, if not the most secure buildings in the whole world. And there's coke floating around. Wow. All right. So we'll go through all of that. Then we've got some really quick action from Tom Cotton. He's already got a letter fired out on this thing. All right. He's like, oh, perfect. Crackhead Bidens. This is right up my alley. Let's get him. And so he sent a letter over to the Secret Service, not a long one, but we will go through it because it is over to the Secret Service. He's saying, what the heck are you guys doing over there? Well, to protect confidential documents. And, are there going to be prosecutions for this? Or do you guys just openly allow drugs to be transacted in the White House? Then we'll turn our attention over to the White House reaction because Karine Jean-Pierre came out and said a lot of nothing today, although it's enjoyable because the media is just hammering her. Hey, can you talk about this? It's the White House. It's the president. It's the first family. It's your administration. Answers, Karine. Unfortunately, she does the thing she normally does. We had a clip from Joe Biden. He gets asked about this when he was meeting with somebody, I think, from another country. And he's a little uncomfortable there. You see that hand move away. Uh-oh. Getting a little bit nervous there, Joe. Yeah, hard to, well, we'll leave it for that. I was going to start dogging on him right now. We'll save it for later. But we've got Secret Service is now investigating this, but there's a report that they're not even going to be able to find the owner, From Politico. Oh, they're not even going to find the guy or the girl who did it. Or Hunter. Maybe they already know it's Hunter. And so it's just amazing. The cover-up is already well underway. We don't know. It could have just slipped out of somebody's pocket. Oh, we have a lot of crackheads roaming around now. All right. So we've got a lot to get to, my friends. And we're also going to go through to start things off. We're going to get onto all the cokehead, crackhead, Biden crime family stuff. But there was a major ruling that came out. It's a little bit of heavy lifting. It's a big whopper of an opinion, but it is extremely important. And one of the most, I think critical issues of our time is free speech and is censorship. It's this constant battle that we're going to be waging against the people who don't like our ideas, and so they don't want to debate those ideas. So what do? They just censor you. Oh, you're misinfo, disinfo, and all the things. Well, there was a lawsuit, Missouri versus Biden. Massive monster order came out July 4th on a beautiful patriotic day. God bless America, and Judge Terry A. Doughty, and I apologize for this, Judge. Sorry about that. There's a typo, Your Honor. Please don't hold me in contempt. But we got that fixed. It's 155 pages. We'll go through that. There's an order that applies to a bunch of people in the Biden administration, and it will be applied. We'll see what happens. And then the usual suspects over on CNN and MSNBC are just a little bit upset about this. We're all going to die because there's other tweets out there. Oh, there's other videos, that we disagree with. And so they have a little bit of a meltdown. So we'll go through all of that. And we're going to start with that and then get into all of the crackhead Biden White House stuff in just a minute. But my friends, if you want to be a part of the show as we go through all of this today, and if you want to be a part of our amazing community, one way to do that is by going to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have a lot of fun. We do member-only morning streams. And this morning, we had a great conversation about, well, a lot of things. And we shared some photos about some family stuff, talked about July 4th. We talked about what's going on in the GOP primaries. And it's some good fun. So come and join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We also go through the Trump dockets. So this morning, we talked about what's going on in Florida, which is not much. But we also reviewed the New York case where there was the Manhattan removal. They're in Manhattan, but they're attempting to remove the case into federal court. And so if you want to stay plugged in on that stuff, we'd love to have you. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com for some extra good stuff. And anywhere you join on YouTube or on Locals, don't forget to grab the private members-only Telegram group where the chat never ends and goes on, my friends. Now, it's also important, I don't know about you guys, but we had Italian food yesterday to celebrate America. And I had a lot of lasagna, a lot of bread, and it was absolutely delicious, celebrating my mama's birthday. And so it's time now to set aside all of that debauchery that I indulged in and go back to my healthy field of greens, because we all would like to lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds, wouldn't we? And those, winter pounds. It's summertime. We got to be looking good. But how sick are you for all the fad diet ads and weight loss pills and all that stuff? We've all been there. We've all done that, and they just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, I know fruit and vegetables, not a fan, and it takes a lot of time to prepare that every day. But you don't have to worry about that. Let's talk about Field of Greens. Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, specific fruits and vegetables that you will not find in any other product. We know that proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup. When you walk in there to your doctor's office and you walk in there, he walks through that door, he says, "Wow! You look amazing. Whatever you're doing, keep it up." And so let's get you started. Head on over to fieldofgreens.com. Save 15% when you enter the code Robert at checkout. Very important. Enter that code Robert so you can save, baby. 15%. Love those savings. Load up your cart and be healthy. Remember, the vegetables want to be eaten. That's why they're here. They pop out of the ground. They're like, hey, look at me. That's why I'm colorful and delicious. But you just get your Field of Greens and you can have them all simultaneously. All right. And so let's get into the meat and potatoes on the day, because this is a major ruling. Federal judge issues a major ruling on July 4th, a very American ruling, preserving and protecting free speech against government censorship and government exportation of their censorship to big tech companies. One example was when Facebook got messages from the FBI telling them to censor and delete information. Same thing we saw with Twitter. Same thing we saw with YouTube. All sorts of government bureaucrats were sending emails from the White House to Twitter individuals telling them, delete this, delete that. And so there was a lawsuit filed by Missouri, by Louisiana, and they said the government is not allowed to do that. All right. You can't outsource your censorship by just sending emails to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube and Google to suppress information that you don't like. Americans have the First Amendment. That means the right to express themselves against government censorship. And the government's response was, well, we're not actually doing the censorship here. We're just flagging these posts for Facebook. Jen Psaki stood up there at the press briefing room and lectured all of us. It's our responsibility to notify Facebook, and it's our responsibility to notify Twitter about what they didn't like. And what they didn't like were things that challenged their narrative. So they send these emails over and they say, we're not actually doing the censoring, but we've gone through the Twitter files here. We've gone through all the documents. We know exactly what they were doing, is using the big, disgusting, stinking boot of the federal government and putting it down on the necks of these companies. And I actually shared with you a lot of sympathy. I think we shared it together from some people who are working at these institutions and got emails from the FBI. Give us this, give us that, give us this or that or else. Or remove these or remove this or else. Nobody wants the government breathing down their necks. And the government can't excuse themselves by saying, well, we didn't actually press the button. They were under the boot of the government. And now the judge has heard this lawsuit. And what he's done is written 155 pages of beauty defending free speech against government encroachment. And he also issued a monster order that lists all the people that are now going to be prohibited from engaging in their censorious garbage that we all lived through back in 2020 and before. And this was the type of stuff that I think was very consequential. Every time anti-Biden, an anti-narrative person, a so-called white supremacist or somebody that they disfavor speaks against them and they're able to shut them up and remove them or demonetize them or deplatform them, that is a win in their favor. It's like going around during an election and pulling out all of the yard signs for your opposing candidate. It is literally taking real estate, digital real estate away from them. It is suppressing the effort, suppressing the narrative. And it was being done with the backing of the entire US government. It was one of the most disgusting, egregious things we've ever seen. Now, the media love it. And so they're going to be upset about this. In fact, they say this is insane. America's going to die instantly because we can't censor people. But the judge chronicles all of the problems that we saw. And this is what the opinion said. Let's make sure we've got that red pen ready to go. Here is the order. Out of the Western District of Louisiana, and I want to just point this out, 155 pages. Now, a big, substantial portion of this is essentially the same format. It's the judge going through and highlighting everything that we know that has been presented by Missouri and the other states, Louisiana, in this lawsuit. They have been showing emails. This email on this date, censorship request. This email on that date, a censorship request. Pressure from the FBI, pressure from the CDC, pressure from Homeland, pressure for all of them, okay? That's why it's 155 pages. And so what we're going to do here today is try to hit the highlights, talk about what the FBI was doing, see what the CDC was doing, see what some of the White House was doing, and then fast forward through the rest of it until we see what the ultimate conclusion was. Because this is the case, Missouri versus Joe Biden, and this is a request for a preliminary injunction. And when we talk about the word injunction, we mean the court is ordering something to be done, something to happen. Somebody must do this, or somebody must stop doing that, right? It's some sort of an action. Sometimes people will say, well, what are you fighting for? Well, you're fighting for a conviction in a criminal case, right? We're fighting for somebody to be found innocent or guilty, or in a plaintiff's case, in a civil tort claim, you're looking for monetary damages. Who's going to win money and what amount? This is a preliminary injunction, meaning there's a certain threshold that has to be met in order for the court to order somebody to do something, and this is the ruling on that. The judge says, at issue before this court is this injunction brought by the states, meaning the plaintiffs, Missouri and Louisiana. The government, the Biden administration, Joe Biden and the rest of his people, and there's a lot of people on this list. So the plaintiffs are the following: Missouri, Louisiana, and other doctors. Shout out to Dr. Aaron Carity, Dr. Martin Kullerdorf, Jim Hoft, I believe from Gateway, Dr. Jayatana Bhattacharya, apologies on the name, and Jill Hines. All of the plaintiffs, big victory for them. Shout out to them and for fighting this case, right? Louisiana, the AGs, out of everybody, shout out to everybody there. Amazing. Great work. Now, all of the defendants are here. We're going to see everybody. All right. Guess who's on the list? Joe Biden in particular. So if the injunction is issued against them, all of these people theoretically are going to be bound, presuming that is the outcome once we read through this. And look at all these names: Joe Biden, Karine Jean-Pierre, Vivek Murthy, not Ramaswamy, Xavier Becerra, Health and Human Services, Hugh Auchincloss, NIAID. We've got Mayorkas from Homeland. CDC's on the list. Commerce, Rob Flaherty, which was somebody we spent a lot of time listening to him whine to Twitter about disinformation. Lots of him. We have U.S. election assistants, FBI, people from the FBI. They're all on the list, right? All named as defendants. And so if they lose this order, or parts of this order, lose this injunction, then that injunction is going to apply to them. So the judge says, all right, the court heard oral arguments on this motion on May 26. A bunch of briefs were filed, and here's what I have to say to you. In an introduction, a quote from Evelyn Beatrice Hill, 1906, from the Friends of Voltaire says, "I may disapprove of what you say, but I would defend to the death your right to say it." We'd love to see a lot more of that in this country. The judge opens his memo explaining, this case is about free speech clause in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. The explosion of social media platforms has resulted in a unique free speech issues. This is especially true in light of the pandemic. If the allegations made by the states and the people are true, the present case arguably involves the most massive attack against free speech in the United States' history. In their attempts to suppress alleged disinformation, the federal government, and particularly the defendants named here, are alleged to have blatantly ignored the First Amendment's right to free speech. Although the censorship alleged in this case, says the judge, almost exclusively targeted conservative speech, the issue raised here goes beyond party lines. The right to free speech is not a member of any political party and does not hold any political ideology. It is the purpose of the free speech clause of the First Amendment to preserve an uninhibited marketplace of ideas in which truth will ultimately prevail, rather than to countenance monopolization of the market, whether it be by the government itself or private licensee. Citing another Supreme Court case, that one from 1969. Plaintiffs allege, the states and the people claim, that through public pressure campaigns, private meetings, and other forms of direct communication about things that the government called disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation, which just came out of nowhere. I mean, I've been alive for some time, and these terms just appeared out of nowhere. It used to just be information, and we used to just talk about things. And some people would say that's true and that's not true. But now we've got these categorizations, so all speech can be labeled and categorized and then censored by the people in power against those they don't like. They say that all of this was done and have colluded with and coerced social media to suppress disfavored speakers, viewpoints, and content on their platforms. The people also allege that the suppression constitutes government action and that it's a violation of the free speech protection under the Constitution, because the First Amendment states the following: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The principal function of free speech under our government is to invite dispute. It may indeed best serve its high purpose when it induces a condition of unrest. Speech is supposed to do that when it creates dissatisfaction with conditions, or when it even stirs people to anger. Another Supreme Court case, 1989, it's supposed to cause something. That's useful speech. The people who are saying the same thing that nobody even cares about, that's not what we have protection of free speech for. Freedom of speech and press is indispensable, and it's a condition nearly of every other form of freedom. In other words, without free speech, everything else fails. It's why it's the First Amendment. The following quotes reveal the Founding Fathers' thoughts on freedom of speech. George Washington said this, 1783. He said, "For if men are to be precluded from offering their sentiments on a matter, which may involve the most serious and alarming consequences, that can invite the consideration of mankind, reason is of no use to us. The freedom of speech may be taken away, and dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter." Benjamin Franklin said in the Letters of Silence, Dogwood, "Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the free acts of speech. Shut them up, then take over." Thomas Jefferson said, "Reason and free inquiry are the only effectual agents against error." Thomas Jefferson. The judge says the question does not concern whether speech is conservative, whether it's moderate, liberal, progressive, or somewhere in between. What matters is that Americans, despite their views, will not be censored or suppressed by the government. Other than well-known exceptions to the free speech clause, all political views and content are protected speech. The issues presented to this court are important and deeply intertwined in the daily lives of citizens around this country. He says, by way of factual background, in this case, the states and the people allege that the government and the Biden administration suppressed conservative-leaning free speech. Couple examples here, 9 of them. 1, the Hunter Biden laptop story prior to the 2020 election. We'll go through them. Suppressing speech about the lab leak theory of the vid. 3, suppressing speech about the efficiency of masks and the lockdowns. Suppressing speech about the efficiency of the jabs. Not allowed to talk about it. Suppressing speech about 2020 and the presidential election. And we got strikes for both of those issues. We got medical misinformation, strikes, and election misinformation, strikes. Suppressing speech about the security of voting by mail. Suppressing parody contents about the Biden people. They didn't like when you just made fun of them. And suppressing negative posts about the economy. Oh, no. Those spreadsheets are illegal. And suppressing negative posts about Joe Biden himself, the president. They say that other plaintiffs, shout out to Bhattacharya and Kollendorf, are epidemiologists. They allege that they were censored by Twitter on several occasions. And YouTube made a removal about a discussion about the face masks. Jill Hines is another co-director. She had her stuff removed. Facebook took away posts January 2022 for sharing actual data from Pfizer. She said that because of censorship, the reach of her post dropped from 1.4 million down to 98,000. Okay, this stuff really matters. It adds up big time. How can you win hearts and minds? How can you win in the arena of ideas if they don't let your ideas enter the arena? It's disgusting. They're cheaters and they know it. But they didn't want a repeat of 2016 when they didn't have control of this narrative. They didn't want the people to have too much thinking. So she had her posts censored massively. Dr. Cariotti is a psychiatrist. He got censored on Twitter and LinkedIn. Jim Hoff, Gateway Pundit. He had his account censored. We have more. There were suspensions that he suffered, and he was permanently removed from Twitter. Why? Because he was challenging Fauci. Oh, illegal. Twitter issued the permanent ban on the Gateway Pundit after they posted footage. And YouTube started doing the same thing. So there were numerous individuals here who made up the subject of this censorship attack onslaught. But now he's talking about the White House defendants. and the people who were responsible for a lot of this censorship. Here's a couple of people involved. On January 23rd, just 3 days after Joe took office, somebody named Clark Humphrey, who was at the time the digital director for COVID, the response team, he emailed Twitter, walks into office 3 days, emails Twitter, says, I want a removal of a tweet by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Is he up to anything these days? Oh yeah, running against Joe. They requested the removal of his tweet. Humphrey sent a copy of that email to Rob Flaherty. He was the director of digital strategy. And he said on the email, if we can keep an eye out for tweets that fall in this same genre, let me know. The email said, hey folks, wanted to flag the below tweet from Robert F. Kennedy, and I'm wondering if we can get moving on the process of having it removed ASAP. So it just wants him gone because he disagrees with him. It's literal censorship of political speech, and it's being directed by the White House. Now, the White House is going to say, but we didn't do it, though. No. They just coerced Twitter into doing it. But not really, though, because Twitter made their own decision. This is putting public pressure on a private company. This is a violation of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s civil liberties, of his First Amendment rights to have government bureaucrats conspiring to censor him off of the public forum. Same thing happened later. February 6th, Flaherty, the same guy, this guy was a menace in the White House, requested Twitter to remove a parody account linked to Finnegan Biden, Hunter Biden's daughter and President Biden's granddaughter. The request stated, this is the White House, this is the director of, technology censor center, says, cannot stress the degree to which this needs to be resolved immediately. Please remove this account immediately. Twitter suspended the parody account within 45 minutes of his request. So that person's free speech rights, the free speech rights, which include the right to criticize your government, to lampoon them, to criticize them, to mock them and make fun of them, to parody them, all of their First Amendment rights gone within 45 minutes because the White House sent an email that they said was offensive. We don't like that one. And Robert Flaherty had a real bad attitude problem too. Please remove this account immediately. Resolve this immediately. We're going to see more of that because he was just one of the worst. On February 7th, Twitter sent Flaherty a partner support portal. Facebook also emailed Flaherty to explain how it recently ended its COVID policy. Flaherty responded saying that Facebook is being dubious and has provably false claims, and he demanded more information on Facebook's policy. He also said he followed up, accusing Facebook of causing political violence. All right, how did you like that if that's your company? Doesn't matter if you're the owner of the company. What if it's just your company? And your boss walks in and says, hey, the White House is here. They're saying, hey, they're going to be threatening us with political violence unless we do more of this thing. That is authoritarian, totalitarian nonsense to have our government coming in and telling private businesses what to do. But Flaherty's sending emails accusing them of political violence. That's like a criminal allegation, and like incitement to violence. Facebook responded and stated, vaccine skeptical content does not violate Facebook's policies. However, they stated that we're going to reduce the distribution and add warning labels so fewer people will see it. Censored, courtesy of the White House. Facebook also informed Flaherty, this is the judge writing, by the way. Facebook also informed Flaherty that it was working to censor content that does not violate Facebook's policies by preventing other posts that challenge the Biden narrative. Facebook also was sending multiple emails to Flaherty about email schemes. Others at HHS, along with Flaherty, participated in Twitter meetings saying that Twitter assured the White House that it would increase censorship of misleading information. Twitter said, hey, thanks again for meeting with us. As we discussed, we're building what you want us to do to remove the most harmful, misleading information from our service. Yeah. Senior Meta executives were involved. Flaherty got numbers of reports and was very aggressive with Facebook. He accused Facebook of hiding the ball. Facebook denied that. Then Flaherty followed up with making it clear to the White House that the White House wanted more aggressive action on what they called borderline content. He said, "We're holding a series of meetings with you guys." And he says, "I'm not trying to play gotcha with you. We gravely are concerned that your service is one of the top drivers of vaccine hesitancy. You guys are screwing up this. I will be the first to acknowledge that this offers no easy solution. But we're not playing a shell game. We hope you're not playing a shell game with us when we ask you what's going on." Okay, we're the White House. This would be a lot easier if you would just be straight with us. You go, what? They don't know you anything, government. Mind your business. Facebook then had an in-person meeting with the White House. They provided them updates on their policy. And Flaherty just kept going. You're not making our country's, I want to ensure that you're not making our country's vaccine hesitancy problem worse. Flaherty also demanded the censorship of Tucker Carlson and Tomi Lahren, because the top post about the jab that day was Tucker Carlson saying things about it. So they wanted him removed. Facebook promised the White House would have a report by the end of the day. They said no problem. So that's out of the White House. More with Facebook, more with Tucker. Now, the reason why we're fast forwarding through this a little bit is I just want to show you the literal onslaught of material. Okay, it's paragraph after paragraph. April 16, 2001, Flaherty, Tucker Carlson. April 21st, Flaherty, Twitter now with HHS. Twitter also wanted to know why Alex Berenson had not been kicked off Twitter. They sent an email saying that Berenson was the epicenter of disinfo. And guess what? Berenson was suspended. First Amendment rights gone. Because the White House censors were putting their boots and their stinky, disgusting feet on the back of the necks of the tech companies. And I'm not exonerating the tech companies. I'm not saying that the people at Facebook weren't like, sure, let's do it. And that Twitter were like, yeah, no, great, that sounds great. But there were some speed bumps at those institutions. We saw some of those in Twitter where even they were going, this is kind of nuts, before ultimately acquiescing. And so this is a major problem on both ends. But what's supposed to be at issue here is that our government doesn't do this to us. And they don't put the pressure on the big tech companies to do it to us. If we find out that the big tech companies are doing this on their own, we'll make our own decisions and take our doom scrolls elsewhere, all right? And it's perfectly appropriate if they wanted to do that, let's say as a private company without any coercion of the government. There's all sorts of social media companies out there now that say, must safety and all this stuff. And okay, if you want to, neuter your platform and all of this, okay, but be open and transparent with your user base about it. And the federal government can never do it. And if you are a censorist company, well, I'll do my absolute best to never use your services and work with you ever again. But that's up to that private decision. It's not the government coming in there and twisting the necks of these people in order to get it done. Flaherty provided a recap. He was probably sending emails about a bunch of YouTube channels that were pushing back on this. He sent Facebook another message in April. All right, you just see, like, we could sit here and read this, and every one of these is an egregious violation, and it just goes on and on and on. We're on page 22. On May 5th, White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, she was a big one, publicly began pushing Facebook and other social media companies to censor COVID misinfo. At a White House press conference, Psaki publicly reminded Facebook and other social media consequences of the threat of legal consequences if they do not censor misinformation more aggressively. She's the executioner for the White House. We're coming for you, Facebook. Psaki said the president's view is that major platforms have a responsibility related to health and safety of all Americans to stop amplifying trustworthy content, disinfo, misinfo, especially COVID stuff, and elections. All the stuff that they really don't want you to talk about. They got to censor it. Psaki linked the threat of a robust antitrust program with their censorship demand. Open threats. Censor them or else. We're going to come after you for antitrust. You're Google. You're too big. We're going to break up YouTube. We're going to break up Google. You don't need all that ad revenue. We're going to break up Facebook. You've already got WhatsApp and Instagram. Those are being broken off. Good luck. So they said, oh, no. No, what do you need? We'll play. Said he also supports better privacy protection and so on. The next day, Flaherty from the White House again followed up. So it's Joe Biden and it's literally the White House. Flaherty said, why aren't you censoring more of the disinformation dozen? And things kept getting bad. So this is a lot about COVID. Let's fast forward as we go through this. I'm going to scroll through it just so you can see the extent of this. That was just the White House, right? We're on page 27 now. That was all the White House stuff. All Flaherty. So a lot of this, maybe 20 pages or so, White House. Then we go to the next section. Oh, the Surgeon General. Who's that? Surgeon General Murthy. Lots of stuff for him. So we'll go from 28, fast forward through all of these. There was coordination between different advisories. They were going after the disinformation dozen. All of these bureaucrats from this institution doing the exact same thing. Okay, another entity of the government, page 35. Waldo's asking for similar updates. Instagram, YouTube, Google. Washington Post is talking about what Facebook is doing. Murthy is publicly chastising the social media companies for allowing this disinfo to be spread. Said platforms need to step up to be accountable, make their spaces safer. Then we get the CDC. Oh, so we're still going. This is on page 38. We continue on. Facebook emailed State Department. Facebook began sending Crawford at the CDC reports. Facebook emailed them about removing information responding to their requests. Another email said these themes, seeking info about themes that have been removed for misinfo. March 5th, okay? So we've got Surgeon General, we've got the White House, we've got the entire CDC. They entered into interagency agreements and they began weekly meetings with Facebook, constantly saying, we'd like more information. Why aren't you adding more labels to those stories? They proposed enrolling the CDC in special misinformation reporting channels. So they could just have a red phone over to Facebook. Oh, illegal post. Robert F. Kennedy's tweeting again. On April 23rd, they emailed Facebook about algorithms so that they would screen out vaccine misinfo that they defined, right? And they defined it. So lots of emails, Crawford back and forth with Facebook. CDC was making decisions and pushing their talking points out to Google, out to Facebook. COVID BOLO meetings. The BOLO meetings kept happening between Google and YouTube, all at the behest of the government. Now, we get to the NIAID, a whole nother set of defendants, and we're still on page 49. The NIAID was run under Fauci. Fauci's deposition was originally taken as part of this, but of course he's no longer there. Fauci and others censored Americans like mad. Say the lab leak theory here. Plaintiffs set forth arguments that the virus originated from a lab. They say that Fauci suppressed this. Why? Because he may have been funding the whole thing. And there was suppression going on from Fauci. He told other scientists, so-called, he said, given the concerns of the distortions on social media, it's essential that we move quickly. Hopefully we can get the World Health Organization to convene. doesn't want those distortions that might implicate him in his global destruction from spreading around social media. Sure, I wouldn't either. It's like, wow. Yeah. You forgot to turn the iron off when you went home, except the iron falls into a lab and it unleashes a global pandemic. Fauci's responsible. Yeah, you don't want to admit that stuff. Fauci stated that they should appreciate the urgency and the importance of this issue. We need to get ahead of the narrative. If we don't react to this, it could be very damaging. Yeah, you're not kidding. They wanted to discredit the lab leak theory, calling it a conspiracy theory. Gave out press conferences, wrote articles that they then referenced. Their own people with conflicts of interest wrote articles that they then referenced in front of the press. Zuckerberg sent Fauci an email asking for coordination. Zuckerberg asked Fauci to create a video. Fauci would answer questions, would be happy to do it. Fauci did 3 live streams with Zuckerberg. Now, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. If they want to share messages and do a collaboration, and Facebook, like Zuckerberg, wants to put a maniac like Fauci up there and pretend he's a credible person, well, they can do that. That's their decision. That has nothing to do with our speech. Censoring our speech is a different story. But of course, this is just warming up. The relationship just got started. Then they needed to start suppressing information. Of course, we've got those drugs which cannot be named. Oh man, hang on a second. I think I might have a package here. Let me see what's going on. Stand by. All right, it's not the feds. It's not the feds. We're back. And we're back. All right, so what were we talking about? So, of course, we have this drug. Fauci was asking social media companies to remove a bunch of stuff, and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter did remove a bunch of stuff. There was also another report called the Great Barrington Declaration, which they removed. It was published online by a number of people who were involved in this lawsuit, and they did what they could to remove it. They said, hey, this is debunking this theory. Fauci and Dr. Collins followed up with a series of public media statements attacking them, calling them fringe and dangerous. And so, they're putting their pressure on that publication. Social media platforms then began censoring shortly thereafter. Google deboosted search results. YouTube updated its terms of service, started removing medical information, which is something we got to strike for. Facebook adopted the same policies. And Fauci said, I don't know anything about it. And so we saw this all the time. Now, somebody from the NIH, National Institutes of Health, said fake imposter handle, please remove. Said, is there anything we can do to block similar parody accounts of Fauci? Anything you can do to stop him from being impersonated? They don't even want fake Fauci stories. They also went after the mask mandates. You challenge the mask mandates, gotta go. Alex Berenson was deplatformed, removed from Twitter, 2021 on August 28th. This is a section we spent a lot of time on. FBI defendants, all of the FBI agents who were sending emails to the companies saying, delete this, delete that. Elvis Chan, one of the people on top. Elvis Chan, who was a special assistant in this case, one of the primary people responsible for communicating about so-called disinfo on behalf of the FBI. There are also other agents on different cyber squads who also relayed information. Chan graduated with Homeland Security Studies degree. His thesis, well, this is interesting, Elvis Chan, his thesis was Fighting Bears and Trolls, an analysis of social media companies and the U.S. government efforts, here we go, to combat Russian influence campaigns during the 2020 elections. Oh, gosh. His thesis focuses on information sharing between the FBI, Facebook, Google, and Twitter. He knows Alex Stamos over at the Internet Observatory, and they did information sharing, with all the social media companies, along with Facebook, Twitter, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, all the things. He participated in a lot of activity with them. Many meetings, Twitter, Reddit, Wikimedia, Facebook, and so on. And remember, the blue team in America still controls almost all of those, right? Blue team controls Google, blue team controls Yahoo, blue team controls LinkedIn, Microsoft, definitely Wikimedia, definitely Reddit, definitely Facebook. I'd say Twitter is the only one that maybe is outside the line. Although in this new arena, we also have a lot of alternatives that we didn't have last time. So like Rumble and all of the other amazing platforms. Shout out to our friends on Rumble. In the industry meetings, the FBI raised concerns about hack and dump operations. Remember? They were persuading people from believing the truth of this because they knew it was coming. FBI officials met with senior people, started preparing them for the old hack and leak. Facebook, Google, and Twitter had many meetings with Chris Krebs, director of CISA. There was discovery that was obtained before the Hunter Biden laptop story. Federal officials repeatedly warned industry participants to be prepared for a hack and dump and hack and leak operation. Our rotten FBI, useless, supposed to be providing justice and truth and rooting out the bad guys. They knew a story that was bad for their guy was coming, and they pre-butted with all of the big tech companies so that it wouldn't catch. And then once it launched, the CIA, ex-CIA officials, drafted the 51 so-called intelligence experts with their fake propaganda letter that they shoved down everybody's throat and gave cover. Whole thing prompted by Anthony Blinken, who's now the Secretary of State. So they all got taken for a ride on that. Yoel Roth was over on Twitter. They were twisting his arm. The Hunter Biden laptop top story was literally censored on social media. Twitter blocked users from sharing the New York Post story, which was entirely true and easily verifiable. I mean, we were corroborating the details with Tony Bobulinski years ago, who had previously sent tweets sharing the story from sending new tweets. They nuked an entire news agency on Twitter. FBI was also sending information saying the FBI should censor this. They shared indicators with state and local officials. They removed all sorts of stuff, alleged Russian disinfo, anti-Hillary Clinton post, a secure border post. They removed a BLM post. They removed a pro-Second Amendment post. All of them. Chan testified that they had 50% success rate in having election disinfo also removed. 50% gone. You can't have a conversation if they're deleting all of the data. So the FBI was highly involved. At least 8 FBI agents at the San Francisco are involved in reporting disinfo to social media companies. 8 in San Francisco. In addition to FBI agents, a significant number of FBI officials from their Foreign Influence Task Force also participate in regular meetings with social media about disinfo. So the likelihood that this is all still going on is very high. Chan says they use their Criminal Investigation Authority, National Security Authority, Foreign Intelligence Security, the Patriot Act, the Executive Order 12333 to gain access and investigate content on social media. They say we have total power here. The national security surveillance state gives us everything that we need. However, it is unconstitutional. Chan testified the 3,600 Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts were taken down. 422 accounts involving 900,000 tweets down. 2019. Massive government censorship operation. Chan testified FBI is continuing to report disinfo. He said, post-2020, we've never stopped. As soon as November 3rd happened in 2020, we just pretty much rolled into preparing for 2022. And I'm sure they're still preparing for 2024. And so you can see, we'll fast forward through a lot more of this. CISA is also on the list as being involved in massive amounts of government censorship. We keep going. Censoring, government censoring. It's supposed to be the people who are upholding our Constitution. No, they're censoring. The entire State Department was doing the same thing. The GEC, the Global Engagement Center, something we've talked a lot about here, censoring and putting pressure on Twitter and others, just like CISA. We also had the EIP, partially funded by the National Science Foundation. All of these little groups, all taking their little slice of the censorship pie. More censorship. All right, this judge is assembling censorship. The Virality Project says these people are a part of it. They're connected to the government. They targeted COVID misinfo before things went viral. And other people were on board of that. And guess who they wanted gone? Jill Hines, One America News, Breitbart, Tucker, Fox, Candace, Daily Wire, RFK, and others. So the judge now has chronicled, just to be zoom out on where we're at, 86 pages of government censorship, government corruption from multiple government agencies, all at the orchestration of the Biden administration from within the executive branch. The judge gives us some basic analysis, which we'll fast forward through. What do you need to do in order to get a preliminary injunction? And so he fast forward through all the different elements there about whether it meets the standards for the injunction. Lots of analysis. He says here, the states allege that the defendants significantly encouraged, meaning the Biden people, either significantly encouraged or coerced social media companies to suppress speech. The White House acknowledged at oral arguments they did not dispute the authenticity or the content that the government orchestrated. They're not challenging the claims of the states. However, they allege that the emails do not show the coercion or the encouragement. White House says no. We were just speaking with social media companies about promoting more accurate COVID information to get a better understanding of what the companies were taking to curb the spread. That's all. We were just saying, what are you guys doing over there? You working on this problem? White House defendants, they further argue, no, we never demanded social media companies to suppress postings. Is that right? Flaherty was threatening them with engaging in political violence. Psaki was saying that there was going to be antitrust investigations. The changes were due to social media companies' own independent decisions. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure of that. Yeah, they assert that they did not make specific demands via their public statements and for, quote, asks of social media companies. They say that they were just recommendations, not demands. And they say that President Biden's statement on July 16th that they're killing people, in other words, they're murderers, and maybe we'll prosecute them for gross negligence of operation of a social media company for resulting in mass deaths. Biden says they're killing people, saying he was talking about only the disinformation dozen, not the social media companies, I'm sure. So by them not censoring the disinfo dozen, then they're killing people. They're enabling, so they're murderers by proxy. Although admitting the White House employee, Flaherty, expressed frustration at times, ordering social media companies to take action, they say that he just sought to better understand their policies so he could make better decisions. But explicit threats, the judge says, are an obvious form of coercion. Explicit threats are obvious. Don't even need to debate it. But not all coercion needs to be explicit either. The following illustrative specific actions by the defendants are examples of coercion exercised by the White House defendants. Here's what the judge says. Cannot stress the degree to which this needs to be resolved immediately. Please remove this account immediately. Okay, that sounds pretty aggressive to me. Sounds like coercion. Accuse Facebook of causing political violence. Got that one. You are hiding the ball. Oh, that sounds like somebody is superior to somebody else. Internally, we've been considering what our options are to do about it. We're the White House. We're the U.S. government. I care mostly about what actions and changes you're making to ensure you're not making our country's vaccine problem worse. This is exactly why I want to know what reduction actually looks like. If reduction means pumping our most hesitant audience with Tucker Carlson saying it doesn't work, then I'm not sure it's reduction. Questioning how the Tucker Carlson video had been demoted since there were still 40,000 shares. Wanting to know why Berenson had not been kicked off yet. Sending Facebook a document saying this has been circulating around the building and informing thinking, meaning there's going to be more aggressive actions your way. Flaherty saying, not to sound like a broken record, but how much content is being demoted and how effective are you at mitigating reach and how quickly can you shut somebody up? Flaherty told somebody in an email, are you guys effing serious? I want an answer on what happened here and I want it today. This guy was a real piece of work. Sending this email, are you guys effing serious? Dropping the F, literally in like from the White House to Facebook. Murthy was doing the same thing. Psaki said, yeah, we're in regular touch with these social media companies. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinfo. Psaki stated that we're creating a robust enforcement strategy. Biden said they're killing people. They're killing people. Hey folks, want to flag this tweet? Can we get it removed ASAP? How many times can someone promote false claims before being removed? Look at this. It goes all the way to letter V. Seems like your dedicated vaccine hesitancy policy isn't stopping them. And so the judge says, look, this is just a few of the examples. All right, just a few. They exerted against social media companies. This court finds the above examples demonstrate that the states and the people can likely prove that if this case goes to trial, that they were engaged in coercion to induce social media companies to suppress free speech. Defendants make a Section 230 argument. He also talks about what's happening to the Surgeon General. He's going to talk about the CDC. Let's see what he says about the FBI, and then we'll go to the conclusion. Plaintiffs allege the FBI also suppressed free speech, with the FBI and the FITF, an agency sort of subordinate to them, or within them, played a key role in these censorship efforts. But the government says no. They say, no, the FBI, our job relates to foreign influence, man, and attempts by foreign governments to influence our elections. And after 2016, when we made up a story about the Russians in that one, the FBI said we had to step things up to protect our 2020 elections. And the FBI deny any attempts to suppress or change the information. They further deny that they mentioned the hack and leak operation. Now, according to plaintiffs' allegations, Chan said that the FBI had a 50% success rate in removing information. The FBI failure to alert the social media companies about the Hunter laptop story was real and not mere Russian disinformation is particularly troubling. The FBI failure to tell them that it was real and not merely Russian disinformation is troubling. The judge says the FBI had the laptop in their possession since December 2019 and had warned social media companies to look for a hack and dump. Even after Facebook specifically asked whether it was Russian disinfo, Demlo, an agent of the FBI, refused to comment, says, I don't know, resulting in social media companies' suppression of the story, right? So censorship by omission, in a way. Well, I can't comment on it. Well, you know if I don't comment, we're going to censor the story, and you've already been telling us it could be here. Now it's here. Can you tell us, is it true or is this the hack? No comment. Okay, well, I guess we'll just presume it's the hack. Got exactly what they wanted. As a result, millions of citizens did not hear about the story prior to the election. All nuked right off the political field, censored at a very consequential time, a very important story, something that is now coming to the forefront. They've got cocaine at the White House now. Additionally, the FBI was included in industry meetings, forward all sorts of stuff. So this court finds that this evidence is demonstrative of significant encouragement, meeting the legal standard, by the FBI. Now, saying the same thing about CISA and others. And as we fast forward, the judge continues his analysis, going through the State Department and other defendants, saying that there was joint participation, talking about other arguments that were brought up. And as we fast forward, there's a standing argument and whether there was actual injury that occurred here, because there was an invasion of a legally protected interest, violation of the First Amendment right. And so as we continue on, looking for our conclusion, you can see this monster of an opinion, brilliantly assembled, chronicling every single bit of misconduct done at the behest of our government. The judge takes us through clear analysis, and we're getting close to the conclusion. But look at this. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful sight to see. And we're getting closer. On page 142, we get some analysis of public interest, the class certification discussion, and the judge is almost there, certifying the class numerosity, particularity, commonality, and typicality, and whether there's adequate representation. And then, boom, page 153. This case, before we get there, will not be certified as a class action. But in conclusion, the judge says, once a government is committed to the principle of silencing the voice of opposition, it has only one place to go, and that is down the path of increasingly repressive measures until it becomes a source of terror to all its citizens and creates a country where everyone lives in fear. Harry Truman. Now, this is a beautiful quote, because our current government is literally trying to silence the opposition through the judiciary, the FBI, and their weaponized prosecutions. This applies to speech, but this is going beyond speech. This is now taking place in actuality. Brilliant quote by Truman. The judge concludes, says, the plaintiffs here, the states and the people, are likely to succeed on the merits in establishing that the government used its power to silence the opposition. Opposition to COVID-19 jabs, opposition to masks and lockdowns, opposition to the lab leak, opposition to 2020, to Biden's policies, statement about the laptop being true, and other government policies, all were suppressed. It is quite telling that each example or category of speech was conservative in nature. This targeted suppression of conservative ideas is a perfect example of viewpoint discrimination of political speech. American citizens have the right to engage in free debate about the significant issues affecting the country. And although this case is still relatively young, and at this stage the court is only examining it in terms of plaintiffs' likelihood of success on the merit, the evidence produced thus far predicts and depicts an almost dystopian scenario. It depicts an America that I never recognized. And don't. During the COVID-19 pandemic, a period perhaps best characterized by widespread doubt and uncertainty, the U.S. government seems to have assumed the role of an Orwellian ministry of truth. The states and the people have presented substantial evidence in support of their claims that they were victims of a far-reaching and widespread censorship campaign. This court finds that they are likely to succeed on the merits of their First Amendment free speech claims against the government, and therefore a preliminary injunction should issue immediately against the defendants set out in herein. And so therefore, the motion for a preliminary injunction is granted in part, denied in part. Signed, Terry, Doughty, United States District Judge out of Monroe, Louisiana. July 4th, 2023, America's birthday, and a nice tribute to the First Amendment and free speech. And so that was the memo. Now, this is the order. You can see a little bit shorter, but details exactly what's happening here. It is further ordered from the judge that the following people at the NIAID, Xavier, Auchincloss, Byrd, Cole, and others, along with their secretaries and all of these other employees, and all of these people at the DOJ, and all of these people at the FBI, including Elvis Chan. And guess what, Karine, you're on the list. And lawyers to Biden, you're on the list. Rob Flaherty, you're on the list. And all of the other censors, like Jen Easterly from CISA, Alejandro Mayorkas from DHS, you are hereby enjoined and restrained from taking the following actions as to social media companies, all of these here. You are not allowed to communicate with them in this manner. You cannot meet with them for the purpose of urging, encouraging, pressuring, inducing any manner of removal or deletion of any content that is protected free speech on social media. Oh, that feels good, man. That feels good. Specifically flagging content or post on social media. You are not allowed to do that. Urging, encouraging, pressuring for removing of protected free speech. Urging or encouraging anything else about changing guidelines. All right, don't tell them to adjust their guidelines. Stop emailing them. Stop texting. Stop engaging in any other kind to reduce free speech. You are not allowed to collaborate with any of these other entities to urge them to outsource your censorship to them. You can't threaten them. You can't coerce them. You can't take any other action that might implicate the free speech clause of the First Amendment. Do not follow up with them. Do not request content reports from them. Do not notify them to be on the lookout. No bolos from you. This preliminary injunction includes all of the defendants, all of their agents, all of their officers, everybody involved in this case. You're not allowed to do it. It is further ordered that the following actions are not prohibited. Now, you can do these things. You can inform social media about criminal activity and criminal conspiracies, no problem. That's not protected. Contacting or notifying them about national security threats, extortion, other threats, that's fine. Contacting about criminal efforts to suppress voting, provide illegal campaign contributions, cyber attacks, election infrastructure, or foreign attempts, all fair, all already illegal. You're allowed to inform social media about threats that threaten public safety or exercise permissible government speech about promoting government policies. You can talk, you can amplify your voice, but not suppress others. Informing social media companies and postings about intent to mislead voters. You can't inform and communicate about companies, or you can inform about efforts to detect and investigate malicious activity, and you can also communicate about other things that are not protected free speech. You're allowed to remove those things. It is further ordered, no security is required to be posted. This preliminary order shall remain in effect. It is further ordered that no evidentiary hearing is required at this time. And done and signed, 4th of July, Terry Doughty. So, my friends, whopper of an order and very satisfying indeed. Should be an obvious decision. We know that free speech is a bedrock principle in this country and that it is critical for the functioning of everything that we do here. And so when the government tries to outsource that and remove that from our forefront, that's a big problem. This judge corrected the record and did so on July 4th. Now, as we expect, they have already filed a notice of appeal. This is the court docket. You can see the notice of appeal filed here. Looks like this came out and hit the docket. Very brief, not a significant filing, just notifying the court, Western District of Louisiana, that the U.S. government, the Department of Justice, from the civil bench, these lawyers are filing a notice of appeal, specifically the July 4th order. And so while the appeal is pending, they're going to be able to continue to do the censorship, I'm sure, and I'm sure they will. They're going to get it in while the getting's good. And of course, my friends, we will continue to cover this. We have some reaction from people in the media. This guy here is on CNN, and here's what he had to say in reaction to this.
Yes, this is a Trump-appointed judge, but this judge was confirmed 98-0 by the Senate. Just reading the words in this injunction, a, quote, massive effort by the defendants to suppress speech based on content, those are the judge's words, calling the present case, quote, arguably involves the most massive attack against free speech in the United States history, Ellie.
Yeah. It's a dramatic decision by this judge. If you read through it, he's citing to literature and George Washington and Ben Franklin. Here's what really is astonishing to me. This is a conservative ideology that clearly comes through in this decision. It's a conservative political ideology, right? We saw some of the quotes questioning vaccines, questioning masks, conservative talking points. But the ruling itself is the opposite of judicial conservatism. This is one of the most aggressive, far-reaching rulings you'll ever see. What this judge is purporting to do is to micromanage, really, the day-to-day interactions between essentially the entire executive branch.
No, my friend, they were micromanaging it. They were the ones who were splicing and dicing free speech every which way. They were saying, well, this is a violation of misinformation and malinformation and disinformation and misinformation and all the different permutations in there. And they had a bunch of agents working on it, FBI and the White House, CISA, CDC, everybody. That's micromanaging speech in America. The First Amendment sets a pretty easy baseline, and the courts have interpreted this pretty easily, actually. Political speech is a very suspect category if you're going to be encroaching upon it. You're not allowed to do that. So this judge, by reminding everybody that you're not allowed to censor Americans in that way and prohibiting the government with an order to do that, it's not micromanaging it. It's saying, don't do it. You're not allowed to do it. You can only do the legal stuff. You know better. And so get back into alignment.
All these agencies that are listed as defendants and the leading social media companies. And in the actual temporary injunction, the judge basically says, you're not allowed, administration, to talk to these social media companies about any protected free speech except for cybersecurity threats, national security threats, criminal threats. But where's the line? Who's going to police this? This is
the judge is. Yeah, not the FBI, not CISA, not the DOJ, not the White House. They're not the ones who get to decide what free speech is. Obviously, they've done a pretty bad job on that. And the social media companies all buckled to their pressure. Why wouldn't they? The executive branch is supposed to be protecting our free speech, not the other way around. And the social media companies now have an order from the court to explain why they can't comply with these requests.
This is a judge trying to micromanage the day-to-day regular activities of the entire executive branch. I don't know that it's actually policeable by the judge, but
yes, it is. What do you mean? If there's a Freedom of Information Act request that violates this court's, that shows that some government defendant violated this court's order, there will be problems with that. If Facebook is still colluding with them and a citizen has an order saying, I'm a member of Facebook, I'm a paying member of Facebook, whatever, I'm a user of Facebook, and our government, through the judge, said, don't censor me, and you're still censoring me in violation of a court order, that's a valid claim, I would argue. So it exposes Facebook for not complying with the judge's order if this injunction stays forward, because it is currently on appeal. And we'll see what the judge does about that and whether the injunction will be on hold pending the outcome of the appeal, which probably will be the case. So my point is, this is less involvement. They had all sorts of involvement in the knobs of free speech. Now they're being removed from that conversation.
It's really an astonishing, I don't mean this necessarily as a criticism. This is a very activist judicial opinion.
Sarah, yeah, it's activist to go back to the First Amendment. That's insane. What an insane thing to say. So they're having a hard time with this over on these news networks. This guy too. In fact, this is who knows. This is over on MSNBC, and he's explaining that the FBI needs to censor even harder now.
Through kind of the parameters of this injunction.
Yeah, I mean, so it basically has some limits on what exactly the FBI, I think, most essentially is able to do. And I think that, you have to take a step back and acknowledge what the reality is about how the FBI has been interacting with this. And just look at January 6th itself, for example, right? It's not as though the FBI has been going in and saying, hey, take down this post, hey, take down this post. That's what they're alleging, but there's just not a lot of evidence to support that.
There's all sorts of evidence. We just read through it in the opinion, and the Twitter files have it. And Elvis Chan gave a full deposition where he said that they were 50% successful on the removals. So I'm thinking, did this guy even read the opinion?
And basically, we've had a situation where some politicians are making any contact between social media companies and the FBI or law enforcement seem problematic in some way. And if you look at the reality, it's like the FBI is not very good at monitoring social media. Just look at what happened on January 6th. There are all of these warning signs, red flags going up all over the place, and they weren't prepared.
They weren't prepared. Okay. Yeah, they weren't prepared. They had 50 plus confidential human sources, according to just the Proud Boys, probably many hundreds more than that. And they just weren't prepared for it. Yeah. They should have had more FBI agents scouring social media. Yeah, and then January 6th would have been prevented. Right. As though the FBI didn't have their own informants raiding the Capitol.
Didn't do enough. They did not take proper precautions or instruct other law enforcement agencies to make proper precautions. So I think that that's the framework you have to remember that this is important to look by. I mean, this opinion, this 155-page opinion, starts off with essentially a big if true comment. It says, okay, if these things are true, this is one of the biggest First Amendment abuses in American history.
A lot of evidence.
I suppose so, if it were true, but that's not necessarily where the facts are lining up with and what exactly the evidence shows that social media companies, how they were interacting with at least the FBI.
Danny.
Well, we got the Twitter files. We got Elvis Chan's deposition. I wonder if he lied about it because, according to him, they were removing posts all over the place. So, of course, major win, Missouri versus Biden, and we're happy to see the judge drop that on July 4th and harken back to the free speech principles that I think really are critical to what have brought this country to its heightened status, is the ability to think and reason using speech. And if you censor somebody's speech, you're censoring their humanity. You're censoring their ability to express themselves and participate fully in the full human experience. And so, big win in this case. Shout out to all the plaintiffs, the states, the people, everybody who worked on this. We'll, of course, continue to cover it because the Biden administration will not let up. Their appeal is already underway. We'll see what the judges say about it. Thank you, my friends, for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thank you for liking this video. We'll continue to cover. All right, my friends. Now, let's turn our attention over to the the White House. We've got a couple stories here. Cocaine confirmed in the White House. The bloated Biden family apparently have some extra drugs and chemicals floating around the West Wing. Now, I got to admit, when we first heard this come through, I was a little bit curious and skeptical about this. I thought, oh gosh, it's the White House. It has to be the most secure building in the entire world. And everybody's vetted. We know Hunter is a former crackhead, maybe current crackhead, who knows. But there's no way that there were actual cocaine or crack cocaine or any illegal felony drug brought into the West Wing in what might have been a library. It turns out it was. It's actually cocaine. And it's more than that. It's actually a dime bag, too. So it's not like some residue. It was a dime bag of cocaine. It's unbelievable. And in fact, others, even on MSNBC, like this woman, call it unfathomable. How could this possibly be true? This story tells us that the Secret Service are now examining how it ended up in the White House. Small amount of white powdery substance was found in the White House on Sunday evening, according to a person familiar with the episode. And an initial test by the emergency responders determined, yep, cocaine. And we're going to listen to that call from the Hazmat Team. Now, at the time, Biden and his family were at Camp David, but there was a brief shutdown of the White House as the Hazmat Team came in and responded. A person familiar with this matter, speaking anonymously, said that the radio dispatch discussing the substance was placed between the District of Columbia Fire and other officials within the department. And this was a question I had. Who found it? Who made the initial call? Who was the initial response? Who's involved in this chain of investigation? And who's going to be a part of this massive cover-up? Anthony Guglielmi, a spokesman for the Secret Service, said that the substance had been found in a work area of the West Wing. Pretty sure that's where the Biden family works. Yeah, that's where the president goes. And that's another dispatch. And another dispatch said that the library was incorrect. Okay, so there's rumors. Was this in a library or not? Or was it in the library, or was it in the library? In a statement, Guglielmi said the item was sent for further evaluation and investigation into the cause and manner of how it entered the White House, all pending. Didn't confirm or dispute that it was cocaine. And another spokesman for DC Fire declined to comment on the contents, said officials within the department were requested to assist the Secret Service as they conducted the investigation, okay? So in other words, the Secret Service told them, don't talk about this, all right? Just shut your mouths. You're assisting us, and we'll take it from here. So the Secret Service is now in charge and investigating. This is what the actual call sounded like. And this was from Hazmat over to another unit, and this is what it sounded like.
Good. Question answer to Hazmat. We have a result on the demo. We have a yellow bar stating cocaine hydrochloride.
Uh-oh.
Staff number 53-21-4.
All right. Well, that's dispatch. Now, I'm trying to figure out how they're going to say that this was Donald Trump's and what he was doing at the White House. I'm wondering if they're going to shift this over to him and blame him in some manner. Now, when that report came out, when that audio came out, we heard them say cocaine hydrochloride. And so we know that if you search for that, you'll see that, well, it's a nasal route, nasal application, it's a nasal solution. And we were thinking, wow, maybe somebody just left their nasal spray out. They got a prescription nasal spray. The medicine's a local anesthetic. Joe Biden's got the sniffles. Somebody's got a little bit of a problem. Somebody's got some allergies, and somebody dropped the thing and it spilled out all over the place. Okay, that's all right. No, it's actually, in fact, cocaine. And it's not just a cocaine. It is a small dime bag, okay? It's an actual bag of drugs in the White House of cocaine.
Logs. The big question, Andrea, is for how long had this item, which was described as a small dime-sized bag, been in this location? Given the regularity, the rigorousness of these reviews, it could have been something that was found rather quickly, which would significantly narrow the universe of individuals who might have been able to bring this in.
All right, so it's officially a dime bag. And there were questions about where it was found. And so this came over from the New York Post. They tell us that the substance was found in the West Wing, that it actually attests positive for cocaine. We already heard the clip. Somebody said, okay, we've got the yellow bar stating cocaine hydrochloride. Somebody said, bag it up, take it out. The initial dispatch stated that white powdery substance was found in the residence's library, the initial dispatch call, right? Somebody called in and said, hey, we got this weird white substance. It's the White House. We don't know if it's anthrax or some other chemical agent or what's going on. So they call. They say it's in the residence's library on the ground floor, in the residence. However, officials familiar with the incident told the Post that the purported cocaine was found in the holding area in the West Wing that is accessible to both White House staff and guests. Now we're trying to, was this a tour group or was this like off limits? DC Fire and EMS did not respond to a request for comment. Biden was at Camp David at the time of the incident, but they returned for the retreat on July 4th. And so you can see here, there's a little bit of a diagram. Here's the West Wing. We don't know exactly where in the West Wing it was. Who has access? While the White House is open for public tours, the West Wing is more controlled, only accessible via personal invitation or connection to a staffer. Still, though, more than 4,000 West Wing tours were recorded as having taken place in March. Okay, a lot of people come through there. The most recent month for which visitor logs are available. So we've got more. It says the West Wing is the heart of the presidency. The Secret Service told the Post, we don't comment on active investigations. Now, we're all trying to determine exactly how it got in, and there's some fun memes of what the White House looks like over there in Joe Biden's office. But when they were there celebrating America, Joe Biden bringing unity to the country, yeah, he's out with his family, and they were watching fireworks, and this is what it looked like. And people noticed some interesting other family members in attendance. Joe Biden walks out. Family's walking out. There's the so-called Dr. Joe. Is that Hunter back there? Was Hunter walking around? Wow. So a very normal family back in the White House, return to normalcy. Oh, look, there's Hunter over there. What's Hunter doing? Oh. Oh, what an American family. Wow. Oh, wow. A return to form, a return to normalcy. Now, we're having questions about this interesting clip that came about. I caught it from @SteveGuest on Twitter. And here is an interesting little excerpt from the celebration. We see Hunter here. We know that Hunter, allegedly, is a recovered addict. We know that Joe Biden has passed all sorts of crack cocaine and cocaine laws, including mandatory strike provisions and mandatory sentences and 3 strikes rules and all sorts of things. And so we have questions now about a former crackhead who is strangely, allegedly under criminal investigation, who has an open history of using drugs, suddenly is there, and we find a dime bag of cocaine in the White House. And then, just a few short days later, Hunter shows up, and conveniently, his nose happens to be very, very itchy. Oh, did you see it? Oh, did you see it? All right, let me turn that volume down because it's so bad. But there it is. Oh, yeah, here it is. We see Hunter walking around. Oh, there it is. That's the nose itch. Oh, what's going on there, Hunty? Oh, little sniffles going on there. Or bro's doing lines of coke on July 4th. All right, that's what's happening. Look, let's be clear here, as you can see it. Oh, yeah, it wasn't just a scratch. It was like, man, I'm cleaning up. That's just my read on it. I could be wrong. Itchy nose, or, there it was. There it was. Well, you'll have to be the judge of that. We don't know. We don't know what it could be. Could be one or the other. But anyways, the questions are abounding because many people are wondering how this could possibly happen. And we're not alone here. We've talked about some of the issues with this. I've got many questions. Are there cameras that we're going to be able to see, or the investigators going to see any of this? Was this somebody in the White House? Was this a White House staffer? Was this a family member? Was this a foreign person? Was this some lobbyist? Was this a guest? Was this a friend? Who knows? But we know that in other parts of this country, possession of cocaine is a criminal offense. I'm sure bringing drugs into the White House is probably not looked upon kindly. So are the cameras going to be there? Are we going to get subpoenas on this? Are they going to start sending subpoenas out? Are they going to raid anybody's houses over this? I actually have questions about who's going to be conducting this entire investigation. Is the Secret Service going to run all of it? Or are they going to bring in the FBI? Or is there going to be an investigation at all? Maybe they already know the answer and they just don't want to talk about it. We already heard about visitors logs, right? There's a lot of evidence that you could get from these materials. And are they going to do drug testing? Or do they do drug testing? For White House employees, do they even care? Are they even asking or interviewing anybody? Or is this whole thing being swept under the rug? Don't know. But MSNBC and others are shocked about it. We know Biden is supposed to be bringing us back to a normal White House. Nobody was imagining that we'd have topless people running around and new flags hanging from the centerpiece, and now cocaine in the White House.
Turning to some breaking news, we have just learned that a formal lab has confirmed the suspicion that that white powdery substance found in the West Wing on Sunday was in fact positive for cocaine.
Cocaine!
The discovery led to a brief evacuation of the White House Sunday night. Joining us now is NBC White House correspondent Mike Memoli. So Mike, where do things stand now? This is so unusual. You and I have covered the White House for years. I can't even fathom anything like this having been found before in the West Wing, and I go back to the 70s at the White House. So this is pretty wild.
A lot of coke in the 70s.
Absolutely
too.
Extraordinary, Andrea. And this new conclusive test confirms what had been the preliminary field test conducted by D.C. fire personnel who were called in on Sunday night after the discovery of this suspicious substance by a uniformed officer in the Secret Service that was conducting a routine patrol of the White House. And so to recap on the developments that we've been reporting on yesterday, this was found, we understand, in a highly trafficked common area of the West Wing. It's an area where individuals, especially visitors, individuals who may be coming for instance, a private tour, might have been asked to leave some of their personal belongings before heading into more sensitive areas of the West Wing, which of course includes the president's, the vice president's office, some of the most senior officials' offices, as well as the press team and a number of deputies.
Yeah, so we'd like to know more about it. We know that if you even post an illegal meme on Twitter, that you'll get convicted by this DOJ. So the question will be, will there be a proper investigation? And what will it turn up? It would be incredible if it were Hunter. I'm not so sure that it is. I mean, it would be exactly on the nose, and it would be just perfect. But maybe there are no coincidences. Only time will tell. We'll continue to cover, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and joining us as we do. All right. And so let's turn our attention over to Tom Cotton. Senator Tom Cotton has questions about Biden's cocaine White House. He fired a letter off to the Secret Service asking them for more information. They've been pretty tight-lipped on this. We're wondering if they're ever going to find anybody who is answerable for this. Whether they know or whether they attempt to find them is another story. But Tom Cotton made an easy layup, sending this letter right out of the gate as soon as the substance was confirmed to, in fact, officially be cocaine. Here is what Cotton said. Coming from the United States Senate, Tom Cotton from Arkansas sent to the director of the United States Secret Service. Her name is Kimberly Cheadle. And we've seen her have some other documents and requests. One of the requests from her, I believe, came from the Oversight or the Judiciary Committee, and they were asking her about her involvement in the Hunter Biden cover-up because Secret Service allegedly was involved in some of the investigation that was being conducted by David Weiss. Cotton says, "All right, dear Director of Secret Service, Cheadle, I write regarding the Secret Service's recent discovery of white powder, reportedly confirmed to be cocaine inside the White House. According to public reports, the Secret Service has not yet confirmed where in the White House, in the West Wing, the cocaine was found." Very important detail. Cotton says, "I urge you to release that information quickly, as the American people deserve to know whether illicit drugs were found in an area where confidential information is exchanged." And now I've got a whole bunch of follow-up questions to this as well. I mean, okay, we've got a dime bag, but was there residue? I mean, the Hazmat team was there. Did they just clean the room or did they investigate the room? Were there lines of cocaine in that library room or wherever the room was? In other words, was this somebody who just was walking around and dropped a dime bag out? As nuts as that sounds? Or were they actually using the drugs in the White House? Were they doing lines of coke in the West Wing? Did anybody investigate that? I don't know. Were there cameras in the room where they were doing the coke? Would they do coke in a room where they knew that there were cameras? No. And if you were going to be doing coke in the White House, you would only do it if you knew you wouldn't be caught, and you'd only do it if you knew that there were no cameras in the room, which means you'd have to be somebody who was in the know about that, about whether there was cameras in the room, which means you'd have to be somebody who's relatively high up in the White House. Or nobody was actually doing the coke and the dime bag just dropped out with somebody who was getting their car keys or something. If the White House complex is not secure, writes Tom Cotton, Congress needs to know the details, as well as your plan to correct any security flaws. And so please answer the following questions as soon as practicable, but no later than 5 p.m. Friday, July 14th. Please contact my staff to arrange a briefing on this matter, as well as the provision of any answers that are classified or law enforcement sensitive. Cotton demands to know the following. Who has access to the White House complex without passing through any security screening? Who can go through those metal detectors and the pat-down guys without getting the pat-down? Please provide a complete list of all individuals. Cotton says, who has access to the White House complex while subject to lesser security screening requirements than the most complete screening required of all individuals accessing the West Wing? Please provide a complete list of all individuals, along with a description of the lesser screening requirements and the reasons that they're not subject to complete screening. So, zero security. Who has ability to go through with zero? Who has the ability to go through with lesser? And I want the names of the people. The Secret Service annual report for fiscal year 2022, Cotton's going with the power of the purse now. He says that the screening canine program, where they sniff for drugs, which you would imagine they've got all over the place at the White House, they screen approximately 10 million visitors to the exterior of the White House each year. So how many visitors to the interior of the White House are screened by these canines? Please provide a description and the circumstances under which the Secret Service chooses not to use canines for screening. In the past 5 years, how often has the Secret Service encountered illegal drugs at the White House? And did you check Hunter's bedroom? And how often were these drugs detected during security screenings? And how often were these drugs encountered inside security areas? We'd like to know. Cotton says U.S. law provides members of the United States Secret Service with the authority to, quote, make arrests without warrant for any offense against the United States committed in their presence, or for any felonable cognizable under the laws of the United States, if they have reasonable grounds to believe that the person to be arrested committed or is committing a felony. Cotton says, obviously, illegally possessing cocaine is a crime under federal law. If the Secret Service discovers the identity of the individual who brought that illicit cocaine into the White House, will they make an arrest under this provision? Or do we need to defer this over to the DOJ or the DC police or other local law enforcement or anybody who has jurisdiction over this or can make the argument? And how often does the Secret Service audit its security procedures for the White House complex and adjust those procedures to correct the potential flaws? Please provide details regarding the most recent complete audit, including whether the audit was conducted by your people at the Secret Service or others. Thank you for your prompt attention to this important matter. Very sincerely, your friend, Tom Cotton, who sits on the subcommittee on criminal justice and counterterrorism. So, right out of the gates, Tom Cotton picks up an easy win, sends a letter demanding more. We're very curious who might fall into these categories. And how do they get past the sniffing dogs? How do they walk into the White House with confidence that they can walk around the White House with cocaine in a dime bag and then leave it? And were they using it there? Were they permanently there? Are you so addicted to cocaine that you can't go, you can't leave your coke at home for your day to the White House? Or is it somebody who's there regularly, and this is just part of their regular routine, and they're hitting lines of coke at 4th of July celebrations, and Hunter's sniffing all over the place? Tom Cotton's on the case. Of course, we'll continue to follow. Thank you, my friends, for liking this video and subscribing. All right, and we've got one final segment on the day as we try to get up to the bottom of this. The White House refusing to provide much more detail about the cocaine found on their grounds. Karine Jean-Pierre came out. She got several questions from the media about this, clipped for us by Simone Ateba, who is a White House correspondent who has been the victim of a lot of racism exhibited by Karine Jean-Pierre against him for trying to ask reasonable questions. But she came out because the media wants to know, how did a dime bag of cocaine get past the sniffing dogs, get past the metal screeners, get past the pat-down people, all the way into the White House, where it was found and discovered on location? Biden is asked about it. Of course, he doesn't have much of a response. The Secret Service says they're investigating, but Politico says we may never find the owner of this dime bag. Let's see what the White House has to say for us. Starting us off is Karine getting questions about the Crackhouse Biden administration.
I just don't have anything to share at this time.
And secondly, per the entry, go to the holiday. Can you give any more details on where the Secret Service found cocaine in the West Wing and how it got there?
So, as you know, this is under the purview of the Secret Service. They are currently investigating what happened over the weekend, so I would have to refer you to the Secret Service on all of this.
We knew that was coming.
One thing that I can share, that I'll share a little bit more information. As you know, the president and the first lady and their family were not here this weekend, as you all reported on this, and as you also know that they left on Friday and returned just yesterday.
Saturday, Sunday.
Where this was discovered is a heavily traveled area where many White House, West Wing, I should be even more specific, West Wing visitors come through this particular area.
Visitors?
I just don't have anything more to share. It is under investigation by the Secret Service. This is in their purview, and so we're going to allow certainly the investigation to continue, and we have confidence that the Secret Service will get to the bottom.
Okay, but it's your office. Like, are you doing anything to change the West Wing? I mean, that's where the president works from. So what are you going to do about it? Like, are you going to send out a memo? Don't bring coke to the White House. Or are you going to check people? Or are you going to conduct an internal review? Or are you just delegating the whole thing over to the Secret Service? I mean, that's like if you're running a business and you suspect a crime happened in your business. Okay, you call the police and say, all right, well, the police here investigate this, stop the crime. Okay, the crime has been resolved, no ongoing criminality, but don't you want to get to the bottom of how it happened so it doesn't happen again? Or is all of that within the purview of the Secret Service?
Of this, go ahead.
Has the president said, hey, let's get to the bottom of what happened here?
Well, I just said that we have confidence that the Secret Service is going to get to the bottom of this. As you all know, the president follows all the reporting here, and he certainly was briefed by his staff on everything that we know so far. But the Secret Service is investigating this, is investigating what happened over the weekend, and we have confidence that they will get to the bottom of this.
Have you sat him down?
Is there still a chance that Sweden will be approved into NATO?
And I think the Sweden Prime Minister being here today, having a meeting with the president, certainly shows that commitment.
Thanks, Karine. Just two quick follow-ups. You said the president has been briefed on the cocaine that was found at the White House. Is the White House conducting its own internal investigation?
This is something that's under the purview of the Secret Service. They're the ones who handle this investigation, so it lives in their purview, in their world.
And then just a quick follow-up on this type of tour. Can you explain to the American people who would have access to the West Wing on this type of tour and what kind of protocols are in place?
So look, when it comes to security protocol, that's something that the Secret Service certainly is going to handle. That is a question for them. When it comes to visitors to the West Wing, they come for many reasons. Obviously, we do have West Wing tours that occur here on campus. They happen in this particular past couple of days. They happen on Friday, they happen on Saturday and Sunday. The times that they do not happen is when there's a federal holiday, like yesterday, there was not a West Wing tour, and also when there's a large White House event. So I don't have anything more to share on the particulars. Again, when it comes to security, when it comes to anything of those types of protocols, that is something that Secret Service handles. Ruja.
Thanks, Karine.
And congratulations. Should I call you President, Juge?
I appreciate it. Sure.
I was waiting. I was like, okay, that went over the head or got missed.
It's not my turn. It's not my turn.
Like, one president at a time, Juge.
All right, get to the questions.
Incoming president, maybe.
We just I wonder if the cocaine episode has prompted the White House to ask the Secret Service to review its security protocol for visitors coming in.
So let them do their investigation. Again, this is under their purview. Let's see exactly what occurred and what happened. They're going to get to the bottom of this. What
does that mean,
Secret Service, not going to get ahead of.
Does that mean charges?
Any changes in protocol?
What if this is a
like
foreign affairs
Let's let the Secret Service
problem?
do their job, which we believe, and have all the confidence that they will get to the bottom of this.
This episode kind of shines a light on the fact that you can bring in illegal substances into the White House.
Kind of a big deal.
Preventing a visitor from bringing in anthrax or something that's not magnetic into the White House?
You guys thinking about that?
Look, Juge, I totally understand the question, but it is under investigation.
Okay.
We're going to get to the bottom to exactly what happened. The Secret Service will, not us. And so we're going to let the Secret Service do their job. I'm just not going to get ahead of if or whens or changes. We just have to let the Secret Service do their job.
All right.
Which
so
they are. You're welcome.
They're bury this thing out for as long as possible because they probably know who it is, but they just don't want to reveal it. Do you expect anybody to be charged as a result of this? No. If you bring something problematic to your work, or your neighbor does, or your kid does, or somebody brings something to a school, you'll see the strong arm of the government come out in full attack mode to put that person in prison. But this one seems like it's probably just going to evaporate away. Joe Biden got a question when he was sitting here with this guy at the White House.
Mr. President, what makes you confident
All right, everybody, you can see there that the president was asked many questions, including how cocaine got into the White House, but did not answer.
Oh, didn't answer that one. Doesn't want to answer that one. Hey, Mr. President, didn't you pass like a 3 strikes law and mandatory 5-year penalties for crack cocaine? Any thoughts on that now that it has turned up to be in your White House? Now, this was curious because I saw this clip from MSNBC. It sounds like here that the Secret Service is really going to go hard and bring this purveyor of drug criminality to justice. But that's not what Politico is telling us in the article we'll read next.
Secret Service is now investigating how a small bag of suspected cocaine was found in the White House. On Sunday night, employees were briefly evacuated after a white powdery substance was discovered in a small dime-sized bag. That's according to a Secret Service official. President Biden was not at the White House at the time. The D.C. Fire Department subsequently was called in to evaluate the substance, which was determined to be non-hazardous. A source familiar with the investigation said the Secret Service is now reviewing camera footage and entrance logs to see who had access to the space where the suspected drugs were found.
All right. Camera footage and visitors logs and access to the actual space. That sounds pretty promising. Like, we'll get to the bottom of it. We'll know who it was, and they'll root it out for us. But Politico says, nope, don't get carried away. The White House cocaine culprit unlikely to be found, according to a law enforcement official. Lines may have been snorted and crossed, but it's possible we won't know by whom. Isn't it amazing? We just will never know. Law enforcement officials confirmed on Wednesday that cocaine was found, but one official familiar with the matter cautioned that the source of the drug was unlikely to be determined given that it was discovered in a highly trafficked area. Really? You can't show us that? They can't figure it out? What do we even have cameras for? The small amount of cocaine was found in a cubby area for storing electronics in the West Exec basement entryway into the West Wing. What's it doing there? Where many people have authorized access, including staff and visitors. People come in for West Wing tours. Asked what the chances were of finding the culprit, the official said, it's going to be very difficult for us to do that because of where it was. Even if there were surveillance cameras, unless you were waving it around, it may not have been caught by the cameras. Well, I'll tell you this. If this was a January 6th drug, they'd find that person. All right. They would have the whole FBI working on their Where's Waldo books. If this was an insurrectionist who dropped a constitution, all right, they would bend over backwards to find that person and then throw them in solitary. Said it's a bit of a thoroughfare. People walk by there all the time. During her Wednesday briefing, Karine said nothing other than let the Secret Service do their job. A uniformed division of the officer found the cocaine Sunday 6 p.m. Since the officer didn't know what it was, they escalated security before they found out it was coke. Turns out it was non-hazardous. So, are we ever going to know the truth, my friends? Is there another crackhead at the White House that supersedes the first son's crackheadedness? I doubt it, but maybe time will tell. And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going to leave it there. I want to thank you for joining us. We covered a lot of beautiful ground. Crack and cocaine in the White House, apparently. Karine doesn't want to answer any questions. Tom Cotton's demanding answers. We know that it has been confirmed that it was, in fact, cocaine. We also went through and spent some time on this very good ruling that now bans Biden officials from censoring Americans when the government was colluding with big tech. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about all of this, courtesy of our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, our friends on YouTube, our friends on Rumble, and everybody who is in the house on this beautiful, beautiful day. And it looks like Dolphin Fan is the man. I see Vantikiss is clipping away for us. Thank you, V. And this one came in from Dolphin Fan, is the man. And we see it right here. Thank you very much for clipping the GIF, V. Appreciate that one. Dolphin Fan is inviting in Jane S. Crota Cheese, Saintly Beginnings, and Fred M. and A Bad Poet all got gifted membos, courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man. We appreciate you, Dolphin. Thank you so much for inviting new people into our amazing community. We also have John Allen, who is also known as Hunter's Crack Dealer on our locals community. Says somebody left a dime bag. Come on, Rob. Like, that's probably, what, too small? Dime bags are like, you know, a dime a dozen. Hey! And so Hunter's Crack Dealer's like, I'll bring a wheelbarrow of that stuff in. Good to see you, John. This one came in from GSD Lady. Says, I went to Marco Polo's site called HunterBidenMedia.com and was checking out some of the laptop, and OMG, what a rabbit hole that was. This guy has no shame about anything, seriously. Well, GSD, I'm glad you did that. Those guys at Marco Polo are awesome. MarcoPoloUSA.org is the site I know. And we did a full interview with Garrett Ziegler here a long time ago, actually. And we went through the laptop report here on this channel when it was fresh out of the oven. So if you missed that, I'd encourage you to check that out. They're doing great work. And shout out to the Marco Polo crew. We've got Voice of the People says, do we not even dust for prints anymore? It's like our best can't even do the basics now. Or they don't care. And, you know, you can think about it. Like, what if this is Hunter and somebody from, I don't know, Ukraine? You know, his one of his buddies or whatever from his Burisma days. They're there. They're doing lines of coke. They know it. They don't want to bust those guys. So they're like, no, just clean it up. Oh, you cleaned it before we got the prints? Bummer. Thank you, Voice. GSD Lady says, honestly, it could be any of his staffers. Have you seen some of the people they have? Remember Sam Britton with the luggage? I do. Yeah, multiple cases. Many of these people look a little bit sus to me. I have a feeling with Hunter there in charge behind the scenes, things are pretty lax. From GSD. Yeah, we don't really know what they're doing over there. It's turned into a whole show. Talk about normalcy. GSD says, you know there are cameras everywhere, so they should be able to pinpoint exactly who it was, right? But will they? I'm thinking pipe bomber, J6 again. They can track down someone who texted someone who knew someone's aunt was in the Capitol, but they can't locate and identify a lone suspect they have on video from numerous angles. Bet they spin it to say the cameras were out of operation in the wing of the library. Amazing. Yeah, the guards fell asleep. They forgot to do their rotations and the cameras broke again. Ben Dover's in the house. Thank you, Ben. Welcome to supporter status, my friend. Glad you made it. Don't forget to join us on our members-only streams. Ben says, thanks, Robert. Love the reading. Those damn legal docs. Have a beer on me. Much aloha, Captain Ben. Well, thank you, Captain Ben. What a nice comment. Yeah, there are a lot. And that was a hefty document, but we made it through together. Thanks for joining us as we did it. That was a good one to cover. I think it's a very, very critical, important ruling. Another one from Ben Dover. Gifted 5 membos. Thank you, Ben Dover. Became a member and then gifted 5 membos. Amazing. Paying it forward, my friend. Thank you for doing it. Karen O, Red Pill Graphics, Christine B, Jimmy the Saint, and Shelly H, all coming in courtesy of Ben Dover in the house. Isaac Bowl says, two episodes ago, when I said my wife says the same thing as the vegetables, it was in response to you saying the vegetables are saying, yeah, when I do the Field of Greens, I say the vegetables always say, you know, eat me. They pop out of the ground and they say, eat me. And Isaac, yeah, I picked up on that, but I was trying to save it by saying your wife wanted to be chopped up and put into salads. But I know what you were getting at. But thank you for clarifying it for us anyways. I appreciate it. In case anybody missed it out there. But no, I got it. But it's just, I was thinking maybe she also wanted to be, I don't know, you know, put into a blender and shaken. Put into a blender and shaken up, you know, I don't know. There's all sorts of permutations there. Does your wife also pop out of the ground and say, eat your greens? Is that what she says? I don't know, Isaac. Well, shout out to you and shout out to your wife. Hopefully you guys are having fun over there. Eat your field of greens. All right. Third proverb says, we don't trust the Ukrainian government because son of a beach, they fired the prosecutor, from third proverb. Yeah, that's what Joe Biden got done on behalf of his son, Hunty Poo. Hey, this one came in from John. Thank you, John, for flagging this for us. I actually noticed it. That's why I knew to look it up. So thanks for flagging it. Says they've already filed a notice of appeal. John McGarvey flagged that for us. And of course, we covered it in that segment. But very, very much to be expected. So not much there, but they don't like that ruling. Another couple clips. And thanks, V, for clipping the actual notice. Thanks for digging that out. Man, we got the best mods in the house. We got the best locals. We got the best community. Salty says, unbelievable, Rob. I thought the Tea Party had the dogs set on them by our communist president from Kenya, Obama. We are beyond Kafka and to infinity now. The Tree of Liberty is quite thirsty, from Salty Sarge over on Rumble. And shout out to our friends on Rumble. NY says, letting you know, Rob, cocaine is Schedule 2 with some asterisks. It is never prescribed for home use, only for use in an operating room as an ENT drug, for use in epistaxis, which is nose bleeding. That's from the good doctor, NY Renal MD, in the house. Yeah, that's good to know. So there's really no justification for it at all. So I think what you're saying is my nasal spray joke, you know, wouldn't carry. But thanks for the clarity from an actual doctor in the house. Fred Petamonte says, Colonel Mustard in the library with a dime bag. Problem solved. Fred, you should just replace the entire Secret Service since you've already figured it out. Shout out to you. Southie31 is giving us some education. A dime bag is an eighth. Dime bag is an eighth, just for clarity purposes. So that's what they found. An eighth. We also have, thanks, Southie. We have Salty Sarge says, Hunter's red backpack has more hidden secrets than the CIA. In the library with the spoon and the forgotten dime bag. All right, so it's in the library too. So you can also join with Fred Petamonte. You guys, I think, have it figured out between the two of you. Thank you, Salty, for being here. That's from our friends over on Rumble. Nate's Memes is here, says, it's okay. It's totally legal. This is medicinal blow. Yeah, oh, it's medicinal. Yeah, that's why Hunter's using it on July 4th. Got it. Thank you, Nate's. We've got Captain Flatastic, been a member for 6 months, Captain Flatastic. Amazing. Thanks for being here. Says, not Hunter's White House goodies. The doctor was in. Dr. Jill, do you think maybe she had the She's got the coke problem going on. Oh no, Nate's Memes is here. Says, I wonder how they got it in there. How'd you get it through security? Do you have to keister that in the old duckus to get it in there? Ugh, gross. Sick. All right, Dennis is here. Says, did Willie Nelson smoke weed in the Lincoln bedroom? I heard that rumor. Probably. I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of drugs that go on in the White House. We just never know about it. And they're all, I mean, how many of them are on prescription meth? A lot, I'm sure. Salty is here, says the Secret Service determined it was not hazardous and actually quite tasty and a high quality hit. So they're like, well, I mean, we could investigate where this dime bag came from, or we could all do lines together. What do you guys want to do? And they made their decision. This one came in from Rocky Water. Says, did they say the White House had to be briefly evacuated? Yeah, yes. Interfering with the function of government. Exactly like an insurrection. Rocky Water. Home run on that one. This drug addict literally interfered and insurrected the entire United States government, causing an evacuation. Good to see you, Rocky. Thanks for the tip, my friend. Hey, this one from Linda Ramey says, thank you so much for all your hard work and your great attitude. Well, thank you, Linda. What a nice thing to say. And thanks for being here. You know, you inspire me, you people watching, you people commenting, you people sharing, you people liking, you inspire me to be here, and you help me stay positive. So thank you for doing it. Really, Linda, thank you for the nice comment. Southie says, I was wrong. A dime is a gram. So if it was a full gram, I bet that was a drop-off point. Remember, Hunter has been living in the White House to avoid being served by the courts. Oh, okay. So that's where they exchange their goods. High traffic area. Somebody drops it there. Hunter picks it up there. Hopefully the Secret Service can assemble that. Good comments. Salty Sarge is back here. He says, Isaac, we all got it. Subtlety is not Isaac's forte. I know. Well, we appreciate the explainer. Sometimes you never know. I guess what I'm laughing at is that my response was, I guess, a little too subtle. Maybe it wasn't thick enough, which is just hysterical. So shout out to Isaac and shout out to Salty. It's too funny. All right, we had another one come in from SD. Says, a line for Joe, a line for Hunter, and one for Cocaine Mitch. Yeah, we haven't really heard from him. But Cocaine Mitch, yeah, I mean, he could be a good possibility. We just don't know. So, all right, my friends. Well, thank you for all the amazing support. Let's say hello to our friends on Twitter before we wrap it up and go over to our members only after party on Locals. Anybody here in the house on Twitter? We do. 3 viewers. Amazing. He says, Deplorable Fred says, make believe this is a $500 super chat. Okay, done. My birthday is Friday and the adults are back in the room. Most secure and cleanest election in U.S. history with 81 million votes and cocaine in the White House. Well, thank you for that. $500. Oh, wow. Thanks, Fred. This one came in from Danny. Says, where are the mandatory drug tests? I forgot they're all lawyers. Lawyers get a free pass in D.C. I don't know. AV says, censorship only protects the weakest minority, the ultra-rich who want power over you. Realistically, the Trump's bad because he makes mean tweets was the precursor to mass censorship. And says, one of Moderna's videos about their own product was taken down by YouTube. Still not back up. Meanwhile, Maddow's video is still up. And V shares this one, which is Dave Chappelle with the cocaine itch. We always love that one. TJ King says, has anybody seen Cocaine Mitch? And Phoenix is here, says, the tubes are working. And TJ King has a fun meme over there on Twitter. All right. And so shout out to our Twitter friends. Thanks for following us over there at Rob Govea, ESQ. Hey, a quick note on this, by the way. So we have been trying to post to our Twitter community. So we have a watchingthewatchers.com or Watching the Watchers Twitter community. It looks like this on Twitter. And we have been trying to post these, but they are very difficult to post. They're just not posting easily. They're uploading and failing and uploading and failing. And so if you're over there expecting more, that's why they're not being uploaded. But you can join us if you want. The community, I think at some point, Twitter will grow, and we'd love to have you join us. So just search Watching the Watchers community on there, And then eventually, when we can start publishing the videos, we certainly will. But, okay, my friends. So that is it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'd love to see you there. Also, don't forget to get your Field of Greens, courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com, where you can save 15% off, baby, with code Robert when you check out. And there's a lot of good stuff there, even if you're not into the greens, which you should. I mean, it tastes good. It tastes great. Read the ingredients. You'll see. But there's a lot of other good stuff there as well. Also, if you want to create mind maps to your heart's content, you can do that with free software at spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap. And of course, we want to thank the mods and the meme smiths who keep things nice and orderly and the train on the tracks here on the show. Big thank yous go out to Vienticus Prime, our friend K Bean, Just Cause in the house, our friend Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, Beyond Geostars, Zach Nickel, John Allen, Janek909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me. Also, our meme smiths, Sleepy Dog Lee on Twitter, and Geegum Geegum, along with Nathan, N810, over on Locals. And we had Curtis Bartle with a nice super chat coming in at the end, says, they will say it was left over from Trump betting, LOL. Yeah, it's Trump's fault. I don't know. The cocaine was probably found next to another box of classified documents that Trump stole. So hopefully they get to the bottom of it. Thanks for that one, Curtis. I do appreciate that. And I think, my friends, that is it for us on the day. Linda says, thank you all for your hard work and your great attitude. I saw that one. And I think that is about it for us on the day, my friends. And so we are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I would love it if you joined us. But if not, we will be back here tomorrow to do it all again. And I would love to see you here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.